I will say that it was very nice not to get a cliffhanger ending because not only do we know that, Kayo is definitely not dying next week, but we also know that her mother, she is finally getting what she deserved. But this episode of episode 8 of Erase, it was definitely pretty special because we see Kayo like finally, experiencing like real warmth for the very first time, and that right there really like struck something inside of her. That simple breakfast, really meant so much to her, and I gotta say, seeing her cry and showing like some genuine emotion like that, it definitely, like spoke to you. But this episode started off from that cliffhanger that we got last week, and we see now that, someone who's obviously the killer, he actually entered the bus, and this guy, I thought for sure, he was like gonna check the back, see Kayo, and then once again, history, will be the same as always, but no. We see now that the killer, he actually left his like backpack behind, but for some reason this guy was like pretty mad because we see him, kick this box in, and that right there left a footprint of his boot. And so we see now that while the killer was like walking away, Kayo, who was like obviously scared, she still looked out, and sadly she cannot see who it was, but we all know that the killer is definitely, a man. And so we see now that the following morning, we have Satoru doing his normal routine, where we have him getting up. His mother made him breakfast because obviously he was like once again going to go to school early, and so because of that, his mother, she's been wondering all this time, exactly what he's been doing. Of course, he gonna tell her the truth, and so he says it's a secret. But when she asks him, if it's something bad, he says no, because what we all know what he's doing is definitely looking out for a friend. And so, of course, she had problems for that. But we see now that when Satoru was like getting ready to leave, his mother actually made him, she actually made him and like a little snack or early lunch, so to say, because she said obviously with like him getting up so early and going to school early, he will definitely be hungry, before it was lunchtime. But we see that, that right there wasn't the case at all, because when Satoru had went to go check on Kayo, and we see him now give her that lunch, and when she opened it, and we saw, that note saying she put all of her son favorite things in there, that right there was like definitely pretty sweet. And at the same time, it was like definitely kind of scary that his mother knows exactly, what he's probably going to do. Oh, and also, I did find it, somewhat weird how Kayo didn't tell Satoru what happened, last night about someone coming in there, first thing in the morning. To me, that right there, was kind of odd. But at least in the episode, she did eventually tell him, so that right there wasn't really a big deal. But at the time we were watching it and seeing her not say nothing, I definitely found that, somewhat weird. And so as the day goes on, obviously Kayo is definitely not coming to school. And so we see now that eventually Satoru, he actually went to go talk to her teacher. And we see now that the teacher had been making his own moves, because we see now that, not only did the Satoru, tell him to possibly call the police, but he also told him to also, call in the Child Protective Services. And so right now his teacher was like, if he called the police, that right there would be trouble for someone. And in my mind, I'm guessing that the teacher must be talking about Satoru, because even though this guy, it's a little boy right now, he could still get in trouble for, taking Kayo, some rough if he got the cops involved. And so we see now that when they went, to Kayo, like home, and we see now that the light was on, but nobody was coming to the door. And then we see now that when they checked the back, that back door, it was cracked some, so the teacher had went inside. And so we see that, obviously someone was definitely there, because we see now that, not only was all the beer cans, left around, there were also, laundry left out, but we see that, someone was definitely eating there until recently. And so I'm guessing that maybe that guy that we saw, in Kayo's home, maybe that's not her father, but in fact that right there could just be, Kayo's mother boyfriend, because, I definitely find it very hard to believe that, both parents would be, so abusive. So I'm guessing, that right there must be like, must just be her mom's boyfriend. But obviously with them, getting no answer whatsoever, there was not much they can do. But then we have Satoru, who was like watching them all this time, and eventually he had ran back to let Kayo, to let Kenya and that other guy, that other little boy, know as well. Oh, and also at one point, when Satoru was like, with the very first time Satoru had left the bus, after visiting Kayo that morning, we see him now run past, some little girl, and that little girl was named Aya. And so right away, this little girl was like definitely, not so random, because there is no way in the world they would show her name like that without her being, so important to the story. And so we see now that, that they were talking, and we have Kayo actually giving, Satoru his birthday present. And that right there was like so sweet, because finally their promise was like now fulfilled. And we see him now have his own pair of mitts. And so that right there was like very nice. We even have, Satoru crying, because it definitely felt like he went forever for this, because, the very first time, they had made the promise, that right there was the first time he went to the past, and then he went back to the present, and now once again he's now back in the past. And so of course to him it definitely felt like forever, so he had, every right to cry, because that right there was like a very, very touching scene. And so now, Kayo finally tells them what happened about someone coming in there, and that's when when they go to check that backpack. And when they, finally dump all that stuff out, you see now that, this right here is what the murderer used to, like, kidnap and kill his victims. And so right now, Satoru was, like, the only one who knew what it was. And so obviously they had no choice but to get out of there. And so right now, Satoru was, like, definitely getting, kind of worked up, because he had realized that the second victim, Aya, she actually went close to the school. And so right now, the killer, he is now, like, giving up on Kayo in a sense, because right now he's like moving toward, on his second victim, which is Aya. And so right now, Satoru had no choice but to, like, relocate her, because right now she is still, within this loop of murders, because she is so close to a future, crime scene. And so right now they had to go with their plan B, which was like taking, Kayo to, like, Satoru's home. And so right now Kenya was like worried if this right here would possibly work, because obviously, Kenya had some doubts that Satoru's mother would not be fine with this, but of course we all know she would be, because we see her now accept Kayo with, like, open arms. And so eventually, they were all, they were all having dinner together. And so we see now that after Kayo gave Satoru's mom back that dish that obviously had the food in it, we see Kenya and the other boy, they were leaving, because Kayo was like going to stay there. And we see now that, while her and Satoru were like doing the dishes, we have, Satoru's mom on the phone with their teacher. And so right now he was like being informed with what happened. And we see now that afterwards, apparently, these two were like going to meet at 7 a.m., something like that. I'm not really sure what the time was for, but afterwards we have their teacher get on the phone with, like, somebody else, calling them to like let them know about Kayo. So maybe it is possible that, if all things go well here, I would love to see, Satoru's mom adopt Kayo, and that way she can have, a real loving family, because this girl, she definitely, she actually, she very much deserves that. And so now, while her and Satoru were like playing at one point, we had Satoru's mom telling one of them to like take a bath, and then when like Kayo was going first, that right there led to her and Satoru's mom, taking a bath together. And so right now, Kayo still seemed, like pretty serious and like somewhat tense, but we see, Satoru's mother, actually, getting her to like let loose quite easily, because eventually, she starts tickling her, and while they're like making a fuss, we have Satoru, getting like so many ideas. And it was so freaking hilarious, when he said, "Get a grip, you are 29 years old," because like I am dying right now, because in his mind he is definitely that old, but like in appearance wise and age wise, he is definitely not. But afterwards, we have, Satoru still having like this blush, on his face, thinking about what happened, like while those two were like taking a bath together. And then we see that, that Satoru's mom, she was definitely, sticking close to Kayo. And to me, I definitely like that, because, Kayo could like really use some motherly love. And so eventually, while they were like getting their beds ready and laying down, we see now that eventually, Satoru, he actually slips up, and we see him now bringing up a future event, and we see now that this event will like be some trip to like some kind of mountain, and that right there will like give them that right there will like give them, or give him, I should say, an amazing view of the city. And so his mother said, you never been there. And so right now he had to like make the excuse, saying that he saw it, in the picture. And then we see now that his mother thought so far ahead about what could possibly happen. She actually bought, Kayo pajamas, earlier on. So his mother is definitely, like seeing all these events happen, just like how, she possibly imagined them. But right now, when they were all laying down, we have Kayo on one side, we have Satoru on the other, and then we have his mom in the middle. And so we see now, his mom asked him if like she was in the way. Kayo said no, but he said yes. And to me, I was like dying laughing. But at the same time, his mother hit him twice, because obviously he should not be saying that. And so now the following morning, his mother was like making him breakfast. And like I said, this right here was like the very first time, Kayo actually woke up to like, to like a real breakfast, because we saw in the past she had, cup noodles and toast and then like check some change, so that way she could go buy something. But this right here was like her first real home cooked breakfast, and that right there really got to her, because that right there seemed like something she wanted for a very long time, and now she finally got it. That she cannot help but cry when she saw that. And so then we see that following night, because obviously, it's nighttime, we have, Kayo's mother, like now back at home. And of course, she was like very, very pissed off, because we see her, like throwing around, Kayo stuff, like smacking everywhere. And then at one point, she like picked up this trash can, but we could not see, what was that she was like going to do with that, because eventually there was a knock on her door, and that was Kayo, because she had called out to her. And so we have her mother now running out, and she asked Kayo, where in the world has you been for the like last 3 days? And we see her now getting ready to hit her. And then we have, Satoru and his mother, rolling in there to stop her. And that right there was like perfect, because now, hopefully someone is like watching this or recording this, because that right there is proof that, the Kayo's mother was like definitely going to hit her. But I cannot wait to see, like this whole competition come to a head, because obviously, Kayo's mom should like definitely lose her. But like I said, this episode to me, it was like so freaking good. Like the warmth of the episode, it really touches you, in a special way. But obviously now we have to worry about the killer, because while Satoru is doing all of this to protect Kayo, we have no idea if Aya could possibly somehow suffer the consequences of being, this time the first victim. But as always, let me know what you guys thought. Don't forget to like and subscribe because that really helps me out. And as always, you guys take it easy, and I'll see you all next time.